I really like everybody to come to my cabin because that's where I like to teach. Where I work, we've been open since '02, and we've got a lot accomplished there, and I hope we get to keep doing that. There's going to be a lot of changes coming to us, so I'm not sure what all that's going to entail. But I do a lot of things there. I don't just sit out in my cabin. A lot of people think, because I do represent the washerwomen that would have been there with Lewis and Clark. But I worked about 5 years ago getting a grant. So I got a grant, and I guess I should say why I worked hard on this is because we used to work out of the camp. First of all, has everybody been to our site? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. Well, we've got a camp, and back then it was all men. So I was working out of that. We did a lot of cooking. We've done a lot of weaving and spinning, and they didn't feel comfortable with me doing all of that. So I worked hard to get my own place, so I got a grant, and we got a cabin built. And it represents the settlers in the area while Lewis and Clark were there. Actually, the settlers were in the area a good 10 years before Lewis and Clark arrived. And that's always been overlooked. So I've worked hard to try to get the women involved in this. So we've got the cabin built, and we do a lot out of this little cabin. It's just like, I think it's a 14 by 16 cabin, and it's for a family of about 8 people. And it's kind of hard for the school kids when they come in to see how small it actually is. But we try to teach all of the kids about the history of the lifestyle, how people actually lived back then. And a lot of times when the kids come, and we do get a lot of school kids in, I put them to work. Like yesterday, I had them go to my wood pile and bring all of my wood. So I try to get them involved so that they can get a part of what life was like. Because a lot of these kids that come don't even have to do chores at home, so they don't know what work is. And it's kind of fun to see how some will work and some try to back away from it. They don't want to get their hands dirty. But we do also there a historic garden. The best time to come and see that is in July, and we fully interpret the whole thing. It's a small garden, but it's a variety of the vegetables and things that I plant. Most of them are root vegetables because we have animals like the deer and the rabbits and squirrels, and they like to help themselves. So I try to plant things that I know that they don't like, and most of what I plant they don't like. But we also kind of focus on the fibers of the period. So I do linen, cotton, and we explain all of that. But one of my biggest jobs at the site is what I'm getting ready to do this weekend, and I've been putting a lot of hours into it. And I do tomorrow an education day for the kids, and actually I've got 771 fourth graders coming in, and I have 34 artisans that's going to totally set up outside, and I'm praying for no rain. But we've had this event, I believe it's been 8 years, and after about 3 years I had to go and plan a rain plan, because if you remember, Lewis and Clark left on May 14th of 1804, but they left in the rain. And I think they're coming back to haunt me some way, because we get rain, storms, everything you can think of. So I'm ready for either way. But some of the schools that I have is from our East Elementary, St. Peter Paul, Central Elementary from Roxana, and I've had to even have a few that's literally begged me to let them come in from St. Louis. So most of them do come in from Illinois. But the problem we're running into, and I don't know what to hope for, I'm hoping the governor doesn't cut a whole lot with the schools because their budgets are cut, and they don't get to do a lot of field trips like they used to do. And when they come to our site, everything is free. And my goal in what I do there is to try to get these kids interested in history, because they're not interested like they need to be. And if we have an event this weekend, and if you come, unfortunately most of our artisans are getting up there in age, and there's nobody to replace them. So I'm hoping to just, if I can get one kid a year interested in something, but most of their parents, aren't doing this. So it's kind of a challenge to get these kids interested in doing things. So if you have any grandkids or kids or neighbors, bring them out and let them just kind of see what life would be like, and hopefully it'll stir something. So I will point out my speeches are very short when I have to talk because I'm not a speaker, I am an interpreter. But does anybody have any questions on anything?
I'm new to the area, so your location I'm not sure about.
It is actually, I'm gotta get my bearings here. You go down Route 3,
Okay.
you go south, and it's on the intersection of New Poe and Route 3.
So it's at the interpretive, it's in the stockade behind the interpretive center.
It's all back there.
And there's also a Camp Dubois.
There's another
Sign
one,
River?
yeah, and that is in Wood River. And we both do different things. Our site strictly goes by the journals of Lewis and Clark.
Okay.
And we try to follow that very, very strongly. Now up there, they started out during Lewis and Clark, but as Lewis and Clark had the bicentennial, things kind of died down with all of it. And they changed some of the things that they did. Now, we can't rent ours out, they can, because it's done by Wood River, which is a nice thing. So different military groups, I know they've had a motorcycle group, and they can rent that whole area out, and then they come in and do their thing there.
And how do the locals pronounce the Dubois name?
Dubois. It's a French word, it means of the woods.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard
Back-
it called Dubois too.
It can be Du Bois, well, it's kind of like Sacagawea, Sacagawea.
Okay.
I figure if you can get the word out, you're right. It just depends how you pronounce it. We used to have, when Lewis and Clark had their camp, it is actually probably closer to the Wood River camp that you're talking, they had their reenactment last weekend. But over the 200 years, the Missouri River has actually dropped down a good 3 miles from that original location. And so where we're at, before the little oil spill happened here a few weeks ago, now that road is closed, but you could go down and see the confluence of the Missouri and the Mississippi, which is a kind of a neat little place to go. Sometimes you can even see the barges going by. So, but it's a very nice site right now. It looks really good.